Screen Heroes, episode 111.
You have to change that.
Why?
Look at my face.
Oh, I paused the...
Yeah.
No, keep it.
I can't stare at that.
No, okay, we'll change the thumbnail. For those who
That's
don't...
fine. Thank you.
Don't know what we're talking about. We stream this live on Twitch Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, and we have the stream up so we can talk to people in chat, and I paused it on a frame that Ray was not a fan of, which is fine. But yes, this is episode 111. We were talking about our favorite TV pilots and some news. We'll talk about some Avengers stuff, some DC stuff, some other stuff. Other stuff. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and kick things off. I am Derek. I've got my two lovely regular hosts with me, Ryan.
Hello.
And Ray.
Hello.
And we are back yet again
Yeah,
to talk
definitely.
screen type things.
Screen type things. That's what we do.
So let's dive into the news, guys. We were talking a little bit before we went live here about Avengers Infinity War and about how the cast isn't allowed to see the movie.
So...
They can't even watch the movie until, I guess, like the actual premiere, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that what
yeah,
they're saying?
absolutely. I think that's actually why there was that big deal about Robert Downey Jr. being the one to announce that it is happening a week earlier instead. And now it kind of all makes sense that they want to avoid spoilers so much. Like last week or the week before, the Russo brothers put out that please do not spoil the film, and then this week we find out that even the cast has only seen 30 minutes of the film and nothing else.
And only one of them has actually seen the whole script.
Right.
Only one cast member
Yeah.
has seen the whole... You think it's Robert Downey Jr.?
No, it's Benedict Cumberbatch.
He's the only... Why
Isn't that who it is?
I think so.
Yeah.
Why would he be the only one who's seen the whole script?
Because-
He conned them into getting the whole script. Yeah, get it?
Yeah, we get it.
But,
That joke would have landed really well on Red Shirts and Runaways.
Would it?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm glad I'm not on that podcast.
I
Anyway.
hate you.
Yeah, he's the only one that's read the whole script, supposedly. Tom Holland, didn't even know who he was fighting when in his fight scenes. He had to, call the other, or text the other cast members to find out if they filmed a scene that was like that.
Tom, we're just going to keep you in this green box by yourself. We're going to give you only your lines.
Well, he's spoiled things before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was...
Yeah, Tom Holland's not invited to the premiere.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
That's just mean. I mean, that's a little mean.
Well, the thing is, the world premiere is the same day that we get to see it. Everybody gets to see it at the world premiere. That doesn't happen anymore. So, April 27th is it. And sorry, Tom Holland, you have to go April 28th because you suck.
I guess you could just buy a ticket and go see it somewhere else.
You probably could.
I mean, we're seeing it on the 26th.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, right?
That's a good point, though. It's a little sad that movies get spoiled for people like that because they release, earlier in some country, either here and you live somewhere else, or another country. Like Australia, I remember they got Star Trek Beyond a month and a half earlier or something like that. And I just thought that was really obscure.
There was this really weird story that I heard. I don't know if there's any fact to it. I never looked it up. This is the days before Snopes. But somebody told me that on the midnight release of the 6th Harry Potter book, somebody flew from the UK to the US, drove right by a Barnes Noble, and was like, Dumbledore dies, because they got
Snape
it
kills
earlier. Because they got it earlier. And
So what, they read the book on the plane?
yeah.
I don't know if that's exactly how it went down. I saw the
Right.
video of it.
Oh, okay,
and
so that...
as far as I know, they just got the spoiler from the internet, because I think the internet was a thing.
Well, no, the internet was a
sixth
thing.
book-
I meant Snopes. I didn't find out if this was factual at this time. I just hear the rumor.
The internet's been around the entire 21st century.
They drove by this
That's not
Barnes
what I
and
said.
Noble with a line around.
I'm answering Ryan. I'm pretty sure the internet was out.
Yeah, there's they drive around this Barnes and Noble and yell, "Snape kills Dumbledore!" And then this old lady chases him, going, "You bitch!" And it was really funny. They yelled it out the car window, and I mean that's a dick move, but the reaction was pretty funny.
I mean, that's not even as worse as there was a library that put out a giant billboard right when the movie was coming out, the movie adaptation, that said Snape kills Dumbledore or Dumbledore dies or whatever, and it says you'd know that if you had read the book first. I was like, that's just kind of mean. That's not a way to gain friends, library. I will tell you that much.
That's true.
We've gotten real sidetracked, but we're talking about books, so I guess we could talk about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, absolutely. They're finally piecing together all of Tolkien's notes and releasing the Fall of Gondolin.
Yes, his son, who is 93,
He
is the one who has kind of put it together and edited and published it.
over the last, I can
Is it
only
a
imagine.
standalone story?
Yes,
Do we know?
it's
Okay.
very much a prequel. Takes place a long
A
time.
prequel to The Hobbit?
It's in the Middle Earth world, but it can be read on its own. It doesn't have to have supplementary.
So it does take, chronologically, it takes place before The Hobbit.
Yes.
Okay.
According to the article that I've read, I'm looking at Polygon right now. They've got a pretty good article out there, but it says the elven city of Gondolin and its sacking by the Dark Lord Morgoth was, quote, the first real story, end quote, of Middle Earth. So
it's like the Old Republic of Middle Earth.
Yeah.
So it's way prequel.
It's Lord of the Rings, a Star Wars story.
Right. Well, that's
That is
interesting.
one mashup I would fucking watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gandalf versus some Sith Lord.
Yoda.
No, why would they be fighting?
Because
They'd be
that would be
smoking
awesome.
together.
Have you seen
That's probably true.
Star Wars?
No.
No.
Star Trek? What's that? I mean,
I just want the two of them to like have quips back and forth.
Yeah,
you
that'd be
know?
okay.
Like, old man, wise wizard quips.
Sure. So yeah, so that's coming out later this year. So we will be able to read new Lord of the Rings content for the first time in a long while.
Stop saying Lord of the Rings. New Middle Earth content.
she has a point.
It's the Lord of the Rings franchise.
It's the Lord of the Rings
Oh my
verse.
God. Just because those
The
films were
LCU.
done first?
No,
is that...
the books were the big title books. Like it's, you know.
Can we call it the Tolkien verse?
Thank you. I'll do
That
that.
would be
Right.
better.
And
That's
then
fine.
It has a better ring to it, you know?
Sure.
I think.
Wasn't he really good friends with C.S. Lewis, who did the Chronicles of Narnia?
I believe
And the
so.
two of them believed that the Narnia world was just Middle Earth, but like hundreds
More
and
Christian?
hundreds and hundreds of years later.
More
Yeah.
Christian.
So Christian.
All right.
The
that's-
lion
C.S.
is
Lewis had a lot
God.
more like Christianity
Yes.
themes
He did.
in the book,
He
but
did.
That is definitely true. All right. So what's going on in the DC world?
I mean, not much.
Shazam
Aquaman-
Gate 2018 is not continuing.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it is in the fact that they're
That you're watching.
not that they're not revealing the suit yet.
Zachary Levi tweets every day. If you want to know anything about Shazam, you should see his Twitter.
Unless you want to
He's-
see an official picture of the suit.
Right. No, he doesn't get to release that, but he does get to talk about how awesome it is on set and how
He's
much
not
he
Robert
loves
Downey
it.
Jr. He doesn't get
No.
to like demand things from the studio and have
Yet.
them comply.
Yet.
He
He's
does.
like half his age.
It's true. Give him a
He
few years.
tweets at some of the other Justice League members, and it's pretty funny. I've been watching that go down. You know, the Make-A-Wish kids who are like, I want to meet Batman and stuff. Well, nobody's like, I want to meet Shazam.
Right.
So
Not
Zach-
yet. After the movie comes
Yeah,
out.
that's
though.
true. Maybe.
So Zachary Levi's like, hey, Henry Cavill, hey, Ben Affleck, do you want to do this?
Which is kind of a dick move to Ben Affleck because he's going through rehab right now, and like
Yeah.
to kick an alcohol dependency issue, and he's he's
didn't
probably
know-
not in a great headspace to be like pretending to be Batman and also.
Did you
Sounds like a
see
perfect headspace
all the
for
Fan
Batman.
Expo Dallas photos of him? Like, he
I
just,
saw one.
he
That was
looks
it.
so sad. Like,
Yeah, he doesn't
was
look
like,
happy.
this is
He's
my
still
life
in
now.
rehab,
I do
I'm pretty
cons.
sure.
I don't know.
It was also $250 for a picture with him.
It was that because he only did photo ops with Jason Momoa. He did not do
Really?
them separately. Yeah.
I swear I saw some Batman people that were posting the Batman groups on
Oh,
Facebook
never
with
mind
just a
then.
picture of him.
I'm sorry. Somebody told me that they paid $250
He said he paid
for both of
$250 for
them.
the just that Affleck.
I
So.
think 250's become the standard for the big stars.
That's so much money.
So I recall, I think like one of the Chris's, Hemsworth or Evans, I forget which one was at some major con a year or two ago, and I think that's what their price was.
Like if you're
Avril Lavigne
gonna
is
go,
600s.
if you're gonna go take a picture with
Why is she at cons?
She is $600, and like you have to stand like 3 feet away from her. You should look up those photos. It's pretty.
yeah,
fun.
it's really
It's
awkward.
probably because she's icky. I'd want to stand.
No,
3
it's because
feet
she's, like,
anyway.
super-
And pay $600 for a photo. Those
I'm
seem in
not-
conflict.
She's a germaphobe,
Yeah.
and like
Oh, is she?
yeah, if people get near her, she starts freaking out.
Oh,
But
poor,
I mean, and
poor
that's
little
fine.
skater girl.
She's entitled to that. It just then it seems like maybe cons aren't for you. That's all.
she should say, "See you later, Con."
Uh
Do you remember that one time he sang that at karaoke?
I do, yeah. He also sang, what did he sing? Something else that was really embarrassing. Nickelback, I think?
Creed.
But it wasn't just me though, it was John and Paco.
Well, I don't remember that part. I just remember Derek.
We were rocking out. Yeah, I did some Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, some Will Smith.
Yeah.
I did the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song by Will Smith. Not, just generic Fresh Prince stuff. Just want to make that clear. So, but the other DC news I was referring to, since we were talking about it before the show, was that the Flash film is no longer going to be called Flashpoint. That does not mean it's not the Flashpoint story. They wanted to say that they are just changing the name, which leads me to believe that means they don't have any idea what it's going to be about.
Gee, wait, a DC movie that they don't have any idea what they're doing with? Now that's a surprise.
Yeah.
It might not even happen at this point, let's get real.
I'd be surprised if there isn't a Flash movie. That seems unlikely, but...
Ezra Miller is just, he's so young and ready for the exploitation. So let's sign him to a million movies and do what we need to.
I mean, if you look at it, though, look at all the Batman and Superman merchandise that's come out. There really hasn't been that much Flash merchandise, so, I don't think the demand is
no, of course
so
not,
big for
especially
a
with
Flash
such
movie.
entertaining TV show on already.
Right.
Maybe
and I mean, there's not even that much merchandise for the TV show, and it's much better.
He's still Flash, and Flash is, number 4 or 5 or 6 on people's rankings of DC superheroes.
The people that know the DC superheroes. Most people's rankings are Batman and Superman, and maybe Wonder Woman now that
that's what I'm saying. Those are the top 3, right?
Those
symbolism,
their symbols are more recognized than the Christian cross in some parts of the world. So
that's my point.
In all fairness.
So if Warner Brothers is gonna make toys, what toys are you gonna make?
I feel like that was Ryan's point. But maybe it was yours too. I don't know. I'm kind of lost. I really only half pay attention to what you guys say.
I believe that.
I only half pay attention to what I say, so... And I only half think it, too, before I say it.
Guys, we gotta be honest. We didn't come prepared for news. We're just kind of riffing it, okay?
We're fine. We had topics.
Yeah, I mean, we have a topic for the show.
Yeah, well, there's that, too. Do you want to move on to that, then?
I mean, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Well, before we do that, we'll just mention real quick that we will be at, Ray and I will be at the Gathering of the Geeks here in Kansas City on Wednesday, April 25th, doing a little presentation there. So check that out. The event is on Facebook, Gathering of the Geeks #2. It's the second meeting of that group.
Yep.
So join us there. And then Ryan and I are going to be streaming some Overwatch Wednesday night tomorrow, I guess this would be yesterday for when the show comes out on Thursdays now. I forgot. So, but join us this coming Wednesday. We'll be streaming then too. So check that out.
So many weeks of streaming in a row.
Yeah, 3.
You guys will like it.
It's 3 weeks.
Yeah, but I have to take a break from killing cultists to help John and Derek learn how to play video games.
Oh,
so,
wow, man. Let's pick some games I've played before. It'll be a little bit different.
You don't
Did
play
you
any
have
good
trouble
games.
with Borderlands?
Wow.
I never played
it
a little
before.
bit.
No,
Yeah.
I figured it out.
That's fair.
Part of the problem with Borderlands 2 is that the guns are all based on a color system for their rarity, and I can't see all the colors. So,
that does suck.
That's hard for
There
me.
may be a colorblind mode. Did you check?
I did not, but I will. It's an older game, so I would be very surprised. Modern games definitely seem to be doing that. Overwatch has 6 different colorblind modes. Doom had, I think, 3. So, they're trying, and I appreciate that. But the older games is still a little tough.
See, the only video game you and I play together that involves colors is, draw something on our phones, and
I don't want to talk about
the
it.
only time we get confused is green and brown.
There's so many colors to choose from.
I always have to swap in my head.
I really wish you could long press on a color and it would tell you what color it is.
Oh, that's sweet.
I feel like that would be nice, for if anyone's out there listening from Draw Something.
I'm sure they are.
All right, so let's go into our topic. This is just going off the rails. So we were talking about our favorite TV pilots. So this can be any television show that has ever aired. I suppose if you have a favorite pilot from a show that was never picked up, that's fine too. But
that Wonder Woman pilot with Adrian Palicki.
I think I'm the only one that's watched that here.
Yeah,
I watched
Did you
it.
end up watching it?
Yeah,
I never watched it.
Okay.
So
I actually didn't think it was that bad, to be
No,
honest
it
with you. I
wasn't.
wouldn't put
I
it on
don't
like
know
a
why
list
it
of best
wasn't.
pilots, but
no, that's what I heard though.
It was
I heard
not
it wasn't
bad.
bad.
I don't know
and the suit
why
really wasn't that bad either.
it wasn't picked up. It should have at least been given a season. I mean, if the Bionic Woman remake could have gotten a season, this could have gotten a season.
I think so, yeah. And Adrian
Anyway.
Palicki is not a bad choice for Wonder Woman.
No.
I thought she was pretty decent.
Agreed. But now she's on the Orville, and that's fine.
Yeah,
she's on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. occasionally. Well, she
is,
was.
because she's Mockingbird.
Okay, well, she's one of the leads on the Orville. So, all right. So let's do this. Who would like to kick us off?
Well, it was my idea to add this to the schedule, and
much to the chagrin of the other hosts.
Yes. So I will. I tried very hard to pick TV shows that the pilot just drew me in, and I immediately saw it and was like, okay, I'm gonna watch the rest of this, whether I like it or not, this draws me in. So again, these were my favorites. These are not the best I've ever seen. They're also not like in any particular order.
You're just picking one, right?
Right now.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm not going through all of them.
Okay.
Stay with us, Derek.
It sounded like you were about to just go through the list.
No, I just, from here on out, not in any order.
Gotcha.
You're not going to put them alphabetically like Derek?
No. And my
or
TV...
chronologically?
The TV shows aren't even like my whole favorite.
I didn't even do that.
This time.
Alright, so I'm going to go with Heroes.
Oh.
The very first episode is called Genesis. It came out September 25th, 2006.
What were you doing around that time, Ray?
I was 4. Thank you. Yeah. No.
What year was this?
2006. She was 4 years old.
I was in college.
She wasn't really 4 in 2006.
I was.
I guess this would have been actually this would have been the fall of 2006, right?
September 25th.
September?
That's what I said.
Yeah. So I wasn't
September
in college anymore.
Falls in the autumn.
How much debt were you in at this point in your life, Derek?
$22,000.
Not terrible. Where you are now, it's not looking too bad.
Where you are
Peanuts,
now.
Ryan, peanuts.
Pocket change.
The styrofoam kind.
Little did I know, working at TGI Fridays, what exactly the future would hold.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Anyway, Heroes.
I mean, yeah. So, Heroes, if you don't remember, it was a 4-season show. It also had a reboot that came out last year.
With Zachary Levi.
Shazam Gate 2018.
So, for some reason, this eclipse occurs and it triggers latent superpowers in individuals. The first episode was a lot to get through. They had a ton of characters to introduce, so it was a little overcrowded. But the overall premise was really interesting to me. They focused a lot on the painter Isaac Mendez and his ability to paint the future. But he was a heroin addict, so that kind of took away from his credibility, which made his character very interesting. And, spoiler alert, when he died, it was incredibly, sad to me. I thought he was going to make it through the first season. And then they also focus a lot on Peter Petrelli and how he keeps having dreams that he's flying and he just knows he's bound for greatness. Was
he really just floating above his bed?
For 10 years.
No, he actually flies. They show Chloe Bennett, who is the cheerleader.
Does she cut her toe off in the pilot? Or
no,
is that
she cuts her toe off in season 2 when she...
I only watched season 1, so I know it's in season 1 that she does that.
And maybe it's towards the end. She doesn't do it in the pilot. She falls and she starts regenerating her skin and everything after a scratch, and then she purposely goes into a fire, and she has her friend tape everything so that they can prove that she's a superhero. And then, Allie Larder's character, I'm pretty sure they never figured out what they wanted to do with her because she was just a frickin' mess. But her son, Micah, who could talk to technology, was really cool.
That was cool. I liked Hero, who...
Yeah, Maki.
I thought he was really cool, and his obsession with the Nissan Versa. That was a giant Nissan commercial in that.
Well, it was cool to see the different takes on this. If something occurs and all of a sudden you can do something tomorrow, maybe it's not something you wanted to do ever. So, it may be a huge liability to you. Whereas, Peter and Hero want to be the superheroes. And, Allie Larder's Nikki is just like, what the hell? So it was very interesting. It made me want to watch more, and I just thought it was like that first season of Heroes is probably one of my favorite overarching storylines I've ever seen. And I'm not saying it should have been canceled, but it was definitely just mangled by the writer's strike. So
it felt like it was supposed to be a one-season story. It was perfectly bookended. It had one of my favorite villains of all time in Sylar.
Yeah, Zachary Quinto is intense. He was scary. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a TV show where the villain was just outright scary.
Jessica Jones.
Oh, that's true. David Tennant,
Yes,
man.
10 years later.
She said she'd never seen it. I'm pretty sure that he's
right.
very scary.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. David Tennant in that show is frightening. But that's my number one, Heroes, Genesis.
But not in a particular order. Her number one, though.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I meant that's my first one.
I was
Ryan,
just making sure things were clear.
No, you're right.
why don't you
Thank
go
you.
next?
I'm going to say that I don't watch enough good TV, apparently, for this episode, which is a problem.
I think you watch TV where it gets better as it goes, and the pilots are pretty awful.
Except for Arrow.
A lot of them.
The pilot was awful.
Anyway.
Okay.
I don't think Arrow's pilot was awful.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just go into that because I had actually had that on one of my favorite pilots. I mean, Green Arrow is what you could think is a boring character right off the bat, and this gave it a kind of a cool backstory, I thought. I mean, it's the same as the comics for the most part, but you get to see, like, the modern-day Oliver Queen coming back from the island where he's been missing for 5 years on the island, quote-unquote.
I wasn't on the island all 5 years.
He was basically anywhere but the island.
He was on the island for like 3 months in there. But he still has a beard and long hair, which they have an explanation for that in later seasons. But you get to see him come back to Star City and beat the crap and kill some guys that kidnap him. And you get your introduction to Diggle. And you get the introduction to the whole flashback thing, which is a pretty big staple of the show, which was actually unique for me. I don't know, maybe they have done that in other shows, but it's not something that I've seen where they specifically go back.
Like that. It was every episode. They had an A plot line in the present and a B plot line in the past.
And they covered 1 year of the island in one season of the show.
Yeah.
So that, through 5 seasons, you get through all 5 of the years that he was gone. And so that pilot, some people may not have liked it, but it did pull me in. I did not think that show was not even on my radar. But then when I watched the pilot, I was actually pretty impressed and came back. And I mean, that show peaked obviously in the first couple of seasons and then went slowly downhill.
Season 2.
Yeah, it was great. It was great comic book TV,
good.
a great superhero TV.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of went downhill after that. But yeah, I think the pilot, I mean, when you think of what the pilot has spawned, that one show has now spawned Legends of Tomorrow, Flash, Supergirl, Black Lightning. I mean, granted Black Lightning isn't in the same universe, but I mean, CW has become
Supergirl, technically,
right, but they have
But
crossover.
all those shows are possible now because of the success of Arrow.
Yeah, and the DC universe, the best DC universe is on TV and on the CW.
Doesn't
pretty much.
even include many of the major characters.
Right.
I would argue that Arrow legitimized the CW as a network.
That's probably true. Although it did have some good shows. Heroes was predating Arrow, and Supernatural was predating Arrow, and I think
Supernatural's been the juggernaut.
Was Heroes on CW, wasn't it?
It was
not. It was NBC.
Oh, okay.
The only reason I know that is because two actors on NBC shows, one of which was Hero on Heroes, were not allowed to return for the Scrubs finale on ABC because NBC was mad that ABC picked up the show from them. So,
well, yeah. I mean, that's a valid point. Supernatural is now in what? It's 14th season.
No.
It was renewed for 14.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in its 13th season right now, and I mean Arrow's going into its 7th, I think, next year or later this year or whenever that starts. But
I mean, like, obviously the CW's had successful shows. I mean, Smallville went on for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? But I think Arrow started what made the CW competitive in the eyes of all the other networks because they have major shows now almost every night.
Arrow also opened up their eyes to other TV shows because, let's be honest, their demographic was, teenage females. between Supernatural and the Vampire Diaries, they also had, America's Next Top Model on there. They were not aiming towards anybody else, adults or teenage males or anything like that. And now they've brought that in with Arrow. They also have expanded their horizons. They did iZombie. They've done the 100. And both of those shows, while right now people are a little worried they'll get canceled, but they both have decent fandoms and they spread across multiple demographics. I know tons of people that like both those shows for different reasons. So, and then, now they have Riverdale and they're doing Sabrina. So it's...
And I mean, I thought Arrow's pilot looked really good. I mean, that must have been very expensive to pull that off. And for a network like the CW, which doesn't pull in 12 or 13 million viewers like CBS does, that's not an easy thing to pull off. So I always gave them a lot of credit for that.
I think it also legitimized like that superhero TV shows could be popular because I mean, you had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. then come shortly after Arrow.
Yep.
And Constantine, and they had a bunch of several other shows all start, and they all kind of died. Gotham, but it's actually still going. Which that one, it's kind of love it or hate it type deal, but it's still going pretty strong.
They wanted Gotham to be this dark cop procedural drama at first, and then they just realized they needed to make it a Batman soap opera. Yes. And I say that with as much love as possible because there are good and bad things about it. But if you love the cheese, you'll love the show.
Yeah, it's absolutely cheesy, and it's just kind of people having fun with Batman characters. And if you just kind of think of it as a like alternate universe, and like a what if kind. I mean, DC has done what if. I think Marvel and DC have both done like what if type comic books.
I try to think of it as a show set in a merging of the Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher films. It's got the cheese of the Joel Schumacher, but it's got the grit of the Tim Burton. So it's, a dangerous soap opera, like I said.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as far as a TV show, it's pretty good. And it wouldn't have been without Arrow and some of the other shows. So, I think that Arrow is not only a pretty decent pilot in its own right, but also an important pilot for especially like this show, the superhero fans.
I absolutely agree. That's good. Okay, so I'll go on to my first one. I am not doing these in any particular order. They're just kind of what feels right. So I'm going to go with my big NBC show, which is Chuck. So
Chuck did have a fun pilot.
Chuck is Zachary Levi's
have not seen it.
Show. I will try not to spoil too much.
The third time we brought up Zachary Levi.
I know, right?
We have a big fan.
I like him a lot.
We bring up Tangled, and then we've covered all four of our bases.
Boom. There you go. No, so Chuck, for those who don't know, it was a spy comedy, basically, where Chuck is a super nerd who ends up a secret agent because a computer system is essentially downloaded into his brain called the Intersect, and he is the CIA and the NSA both try and take him down because they think he stole the Intersect, which is supposed to be this incredibly dangerous training program and box of knowledge. And then, of course, they find out he is the Intersect, and now they're forced to take care of him and protect him so he doesn't die. So it's a pretty fun show. He works at Buy More, which is basically a Best Buy, so he gets to have this kind of like retail job, and the Yvonne Stratsky, I never got her last name right. She's the lead woman on the show, Sarah Walker, and she is the CIA agent who's trying to protect him, and she, is undercover at like the hot dog stand across the street stuff. Like it's a little tropey, it's a little corny, but it's a fun secret agent show that really just continues to get better from there, and he's just a lovable hero guy. It's great.
He is. That show is really fun. And I loved turning it on, watching an episode. It felt very sectioned off, so I could pick it up and put it down when I needed to.
It's tough. If you fall in love with some of these characters, the finale is kind of a gut punch, but it's a really good show. And I think the pilot just started things off really strong by introducing all of the characters and the whole premise for the entire show, which is a difficult balance. I mean, you had to have kind of the lovable nerd who could still be somewhat convincing as somebody who could put himself in dangerous situations and pull stuff off, because he had to, right?
Yeah.
And that's not an easy thing to do, but It was fun.
A couple of people in chat agreed with you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're the first one to
Nice.
start.
Apparently you
Yes.
you had to mention Chuck, and that was the thing that would set people to respond in chat.
Thank you, Ren Buff and Bruce Wayne. I appreciate it. Chuck is amazing. I love that show so much.
So I kind of dislike it. I kind of also dislike Firefly for the same reason. They make me like Adam Baldwin, and that man is a garbage human.
So his character on Chuck is actually a toned down version of himself in real life.
Right. We didn't realize that. We thought he was just playing the, lovable asshole.
It was a little disappointing to find out that was just a toned down version of him.
Yeah.
But his character does balance really well on the show, and the rest of the cast is wonderful. And if you can't love the Chuck Sarah on and off romance in the show, then you're just probably a little dead inside. I'm just gonna say it.
Harsh.
They had a good will they won't they. They had a good one.
I love that show. I want to rewatch Chuck now. Let's do it.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay. We're gonna stop the podcast, guys. We'll come back.
We'll be back in 5 seasons. All right. Let's move on, Ray, to your number 2.
All right, so this one came out a few years ago, but I didn't watch it until about a few weeks ago. And that is The Good Place. Episode is called Everything is Fine, and it debuted September 19th, 2016. If you don't know what The Good Place is, it's a sitcom starring Kristen Bell and Ted Danson, and they are fantastic together. And it's the premise that her character has passed away and she's reached heaven and now everything is fine. And I'm not going to spoil anything for you because it's still a fresh show. Season 3 is coming out this winter, I believe. So go binge it on Netflix and Hulu because I believe one has season 1 and the other has season 2. But it's a lot of fun. Seasons are short. You can get through them. And Kristen Bell just proves that she has, she's everything. She's a great actress. She's a great singer. And she's a great comedian. So you can get on board. What the short?
So it's in The Good Place, which is heaven, right? There's the good place and the bad place, right? You can't curse in The Good Place.
Okay.
It's really funny.
It stops you from cursing. So if you were going to say a bad word, it replaces it with something. And it's hilarious. The show is amazing. And the pilot was really, really good to kind of build this really kind of like Pleasantville-esque universe.
The creators were part of 2 of my other favorite sitcoms, Parks and Rec and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. They have a lot of the same. They have a lot of the same people that join in on it. The guy who plays Dennis Feinstein appears.
That's unfortunate, but
Is Jeremy Jam in there?
Adam Scott is though.
Adam Scott does show up. Yeah.
Adam Scott's in there. There's just a lot of reminiscent things. So if you like those 2 sitcoms, you'll probably like The Good Place.
Yeah, the budget's really strong. The show looks really good. The actors are all great. The story is super unique. Mm-hmm. And the pilot really sells you on it. I mean, you watch that episode and you have to know what happens next.
Right.
And I think that's the mark of a good pilot, right? Is I've seen it, now I want more. That's the whole point. And that one absolutely does that. Mm-hmm. Great show. Ryan?
I'm going to hit with a little bit bigger show.
Yeah.
It was recent. The Walking Dead.
Yes.
Love or hate where it's going this season. The pilot was a very strong piece of television cinema. It was, we got our introduction to Rick as a cop, as a sheriff or whatever he was, and you see the accident that sends him to a hospital, and he wakes up and the whole world has gone to hell and the zombies are everywhere and he's not in good shape and, trying to get around and runs into Morgan, who'd become a recurring character later on in the show and is now moving to Fear the Walking Dead, I guess. And you get the hint of Glenn at the end, which if you're a comic book fan, then of course you're going to know Glenn and, be excited to see Glenn. But at this point, Rick is kind of on his own, stuck in this tank with zombies all around him, and it's a very intense scene. And you hear Glenn come in and call him a dumbass or whatever it was, and it was
I really liked it. I thought it was a solid hour of television. The bicycle girl,
Yeah.
the zombie for that was
The half
so
zombie.
well done. Yeah, that was really
And even
great
like the
makeup.
little girl that he runs into, that
Yeah.
was like a flash forward, I guess. Or I
Yeah.
guess it was the very beginning of the episode, but then it was flash forward from where he is later. There's some weird time stuff happening, even this season still in The Walking Dead.
Like
I'm with Chagrin and Chad on this one. I actually found the episode really boring, and I didn't continue watching.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I like my slow zombie films. You know, I also like the look of it. It was this. It almost had this Western feel. He's riding this horse and he's
I
going
did like
down
that where he's
the
down the highway. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
by himself. They shut down Atlanta to film that. So
I'm sure that made lots of people happy. Small town.
Atlanta loves when people inconvenience them.
I mean, the traffic's never an issue, so.
No, it's so empty.
So, did you mean that you like zombie movies that are slow? Or
Yeah,
you
that
like
build up the
zombies
tension.
that are slow?
No. I actually love when zombies are fast moving.
Okay.
But a slow paced zombie film to me is just, it's fun because it builds up the tension. Like, you know, in this world, from the moment this show starts, that everybody you love is going to die eventually in a brutal, horrible way, most likely.
And in a way that doesn't happen in the comic books. Probably.
Or they could recreate it shot for shot and people will still be angry. So, yeah, no.
Welcome to fandom.
It's almost like you can't please people.
You can't, ever.
Weird.
Even at this table, me and Rachel both liked the pilot, you didn't. And I would venture to say that if you went out and looked for like articles about the best TV pilots, probably most of them are going to say
there.
The Walking Dead.
It absolutely was, because I did a lot of research on this to make sure I didn't forget anything glaring, because I've watched a lot of TV and it's easy to forget stuff. And The Walking Dead was, I think, on every list. So I'm in the minority there. I know that. The show's been incredibly popular, but it just didn't grab me.
That debuted on Halloween, and I remember staying at home to watch it.
Me too. Actually, I think I watched it after Scare It, maybe. I don't remember, but
maybe.
I watched it that night too, yeah.
And
So
then
I didn't
6
see it for a
months,
couple of years
6
after
months
that.
later, they showed it again in black and white, and I thought that was even better because it reminded me
That's
of
interesting.
George Romero.
There was a ton of hype for it. Like when that was coming out on Halloween, it was
I had people over to my house. It was a party.
What year was that?
well, it's on season 8 now, right?
Okay, so about 2010 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, there was a ton of hype. I mean, it was a big deal. You know, like the hype that people had for Ash vs. Evil Dead when that was premiering on Halloween. It was like that, except way bigger because for some reason, like the public just latched on to Walking Dead.
Now, if that was fall of 2010, that's when I had finished college and was a traveling software consultant and was never home. So I really only watched stuff that I had on disc that I could burn to my computer. So
The Walking Dead was really lucky because when it came out as a comic book, it came out when readers were embracing non-superhero stuff. This is when Why the Last Man got started and Fables, and all three of these were optioned immediately for TV shows, but only Robert Kirkman, who's the writer and creator of Walking Dead, was such a champion for his stuff to be in other mediums. So the other two have kind of fallen short. Fables, of course, got picked up by multiple people and then dropped, and then they came up with their own watered-down versions of the show. And Why the Last Man has been in development hell forever, you know, starting as far back as 2005 when Shia LaBeouf was rumored to play Yarick.
maybe we'll get a Saga show. That'd be cool.
Saga would be fun.
It
like really would. I mean, and now
Star
with
Wars fantasy mashup crazy.
Can we just get a Star Wars show first?
I mean, you've had
like a
couple
non-cartoon show.
with Walking Dead and Preacher and Lucifer coming out, I'm more hopeful for these other comic books that people have optioned. Yeah. Great pick.
Thank you.
All right, so my second one, I'm going to go with Battlestar Galactica.
Oh my god, that was on every list I looked at too.
So not the Prelude or Caprica or any of that stuff. This is literally the first episode, which was called 33. This was in 2005, January of 2005. And this episode was super cool. It won a Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Performance, which is really great for a sci-fi show. That's a big award for them. And basically the premise of the show is we're on the run from the Cylons. The Cylons are trying to kill us, and we have to jump, right? We have to jump every 33 minutes because somehow the Cylons keep finding the fleet every 33 minutes. That's why the episode's called 33. And it takes like 200 and something jumps before they find out, that there's one ship that's kind of causing the matchup to happen. They have to destroy their own ship, and it's just really dark and intense, and it's a really good kind of capsule of what the show is going to be, right? It's this, the humans are on the run, they're the last of their kind, and the Cylons are just breathing down their neck the entire way. There's never really a moment to rest kind of concept. Just constantly on the fly, and you're introduced to all the big characters, and the special effects were great. The budget was good. It was written by Ronald D. Moore, who, if you don't know, is a long-time sci-fi guy. He worked on Star Trek: The Next Generation and a bunch of other things. So really awesome way to bring that franchise back. And then unfortunately the writer's strike hit in a year or two, but that's not their fault. So Did you guys watch Battlestar?
I did not.
I didn't. I tried to get into it a couple times, and it just, the timing never worked out. I always had to drop it, and then I picked up other shows, so.
Fracking excuses.
Exactly. Here, Katie Sackhoff is amazing, though. And,
she's great, yeah. The whole cast is really good.
Well, I heard that, casting a female as Starbuck really angered a lot of people, and then they saw her and they were like, nope, we're good. This is fine.
Yeah, it's a weird thing for people to be angry about because, the original Battlestar was in the 70s, and, I mean, if Star Trek's cheesy, Battlestar needs a whole separate word, right? And then the remake was just really solid science fiction. Really, really good.
Yeah.
And the end goes a little off the rails, but I'm not a fan of the finale, but that's a separate episode. So
I hear there's a lot of that. I hear that Stargate Atlantis went really off the rails too. So it's a thing in sci-fi.
Yeah. But the pilot's amazing. If you've never watched the reboot of Battlestar, it's definitely worth your time. Really good stuff.
All right.
Ray, your third one, since nobody else...
Yeah. So my next one is the Young Justice pilot, Independence Day. Came out November 26th.
Wait, Independence Day?
Starring Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum as Robin and...
You're done.
I mean, I'd watch that.
Robin and Aqualad.
You guys would.
Jeff Goldblum as Aqualad?
Yeah.
I could buy it.
All right, well, I'm done here. That's
Good pick, Rachel.
That's what we're pitching. That's what we're casting.
Yes, that is my pitch for the live action Young Justice movie.
Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum. It's not my fault they called their damn
Who's Randy
episode
Quaid
that.
gonna play? Beast Boy?
Red Tornado.
I like that. That's a good pick.
That'll work.
That's good.
But he only says things in Cousin Eddie's voice.
That's right. I'm good with that. Well, isn't that his normal voice?
I don't know. Is it?
I think it is.
I'm not sure. I've never met him in person. I can't say.
Okay.
Anyway, this show focuses on the Young Justice comic book that came out years before. It, follows 4 sidekicks at first. Speedy, Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad. And it became one of the best shows I've ever seen, one of the best well-written shows. It has compelling story arcs.
Is the pilot when Speedy leaves, separates from Green Arrow because he's like, I'm sick of being a sidekick or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, I remember that. That was a good episode.
Everybody, the show was so well done, and I wanted to get into it more. It was heartbreaking when there was a year in between season 1 and season 2, and now, everybody says season 3 is coming out, and there's news articles, and I'll believe it when I see it because I've been hurt before, guys.
According to
American Gods.
According to the gentleman who voices Aqualad, the actual audio recordings have been completed.
I know.
So
I know. but it's
That's a big chunk of the work. So
like
Probably the animation would probably be more work.
I didn't say the most work, but it's still a big chunk.
there was this horrible
As someone who's done that type of work.
There's this horrible 1950s need to create kid sidekicks for everybody instead of kid superheroes and
dog sidekicks. So it was a weird
dog
phase of that
sidekicks.
too.
Yeah, it was just the 50s
Because if
were
you're an
weird,
adult,
man.
why aren't you your own superhero?
Like, this is because of McCarthyism. He brought in people, they created the Comics Authority Code or whatever for censorship on comics and everything. And, you know, so they created a lot of children, and this show validates these character creations. They're not just there to say really ridiculous things and get kidnapped all the time. They are legitimate people with problems in this show, and I want to keep watching it. I've rewatched the show so many times, and that pilot is the reason why I kept watching it.
I'm excited to do the rewatch before season 3.
Yeah.
No, the pilot's great. I was so excited to see that stuff because I love the Justice League cartoon and Batman the Animated Series and that whole style. And this was darker, don't get me wrong, but it still felt like it was in the same universe, in the same vein.
And they actually did a good job, not just with the sidekicks, but also with the actual Justice League members when they showed up. The whole relationship between Superboy
and Superman,
or whatever they called him in the show at any given time. And yeah, Superman and Batman kind of having to be like, go talk to him, you know. Batman, it's weird seeing Batman like that, but and even Green Arrow and Black Canary, like I really loved. You got a little bit of like their chemistry there. Absolutely. And Black Canary training.
Red Tornado was there, which was
Red
cool.
Tornado,
a very underused hero in my opinion. So
I think they could have picked some. They could have picked a better like babysitter. I think I liked it better when Shazam was Captain Marvel was the babysitter.
Rob and Chad Lowe voiced him, and it was perfect.
Yeah, it was really good.
Rob Lowe has the voice of a teenager. You know? He just did Chris Traeger, and it was awesome.
Literally the best Shazam of all time.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, your turn.
I'm going to go with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That was a great pilot.
People can say a lot of things about the first season of that show, but the pilot was good. You got introduced to all these characters in the small group of agents, of S.H.I.E.L.D., and you get introduced to Skye, who is the rogue hacker that some people like and some people don't like.
I just hate the name. I'm over not
that's not her name anymore. So
no, it's Daisy, and I hate that name even more. So
really?
I'll just call her
Well, that's at least
Quake.
true to a character.
Yeah, you're right. I'll just call her Quake.
Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't gotten to that far yet. But yeah, you get all these characters that you meet. One thing the show does really well is they have all gotten chances to shine, and no matter which character you kind of gravitate towards, they do get their storyline throughout the series. And now it's season 6, I think, and it hasn't been renewed yet.
Those signs are pointing towards.
It would surprise me if it did not get renewed. I think the ratings have been up this season. But
it would seem weird that they couldn't somehow ride the Infinity War coattails for another season. That seems unlikely.
Infinity War is a little bit bigger than a lot of the storylines. I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has done some crazy crap, and when you think about that it's in the MCU, it's kind of weird that like you don't hear about any of this stuff because some of it's even bigger than the things that have happened in the movies.
Well, I mean, the movies have that problem too. Like
S.H.I.E.L.D. is really...
Thor: The Dark World, for example.
Well, one of the episodes
We're not
in Agents
ever
of
going to
S.H.I.E.L.D.
talk about London again.
Yeah,
one of the episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was the cleanup from Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah.
So at least they acknowledged it.
Yeah. I mean, it's they do have tie-ins, and the whole first season had problems in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they didn't, when they first pitched the show and filmed the pilot and started writing the season, they didn't know that Captain America Winter Soldier was going to completely annihilate S.H.I.E.L.D. as an organization.
Yeah, I feel like there was a miscommunication somewhere.
Yeah, between the TV
Russo
departments.
brothers are dicks.
Between the TV department and the movie department, there was some definite issues. But if you can... I don't even think that first season is all that bad, but if you aren't enjoying that first season, you get through some... You get better stuff later on.
The cast is fantastic, and the relationship they have with each other during that first season is so good. You can tell that they had a lot of fun on set because as soon as you see them interact with each other, you know that there's a familiarity between them, that there's a connection and a chemistry. So even though some of the episodes in season 1 are so bad they remind me of the first season of TNG.
That's hurtful.
It's fun to watch them together.
And if you were a fan of those early movies as they came out, then you already knew Coulson and had some invested interest in him.
Absolutely.
He was also in one of the shorts that Marvel used to do, the one-shots. So he had already had some development there, and he's a great actor who has chemistry with just about anybody on screen.
There's a lot of Whedon in that first season. Amy Acker's
Joss
in there.
Whedon actually, I think, wrote the first episode, the pilot.
He did.
Right, yeah.
But then Jed Whedon is one of the showrunners
wife.
for the rest of it, yeah. So there's still some Whedon influence there, just not Joss.
Yeah.
But yeah, that show, I've said it a million times on the podcast, it's really disappointing to me that you guys haven't watched it, but
I've watched some of it.
It's a really great show. Yeah, but you wouldn't be bored with
It's true. I hear nothing, but it just gets ramped up even better and better.
Every season
I'm
is
not
better than the
disagreeing.
last season.
I'm just saying that I got bored.
You got
and I
through
stopped
Arrow.
watching
You
it.
got through the first half of the first season of Arrow.
I actually think the first season of Arrow is better than what I watched in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
It probably is, but
well, that's what I'm saying. So that's not fair.
But you're going into Infinity War not having seen all of the Marvel Universe.
How will
stuff.
I ever survive?
I'm just saying. Wouldn't you rather have seen everything?
I'm convinced the people making the movie haven't seen the entire MCU, so
Probably true.
so I think I'm all right.
I mean, how many hours of content is the MCU at this point? It's so many.
I mean, a lot. You're talking over 30 hours of content for the movies.
Well, the Russo brothers just rewatch their films and Community.
That's right.
Like, they don't do anything else.
We have 5-6 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. now. You have every season, both seasons of Daredevil,
All
Jessica
the
Jones, Luke Cage,
one-shots, the
Defenders.
2 seasons of the Agent Carter.
Yeah, I mean, there's Inhumans.
They're probably closing in on 100 hours of content. So
I would think it's over that.
I mean, maybe you have over 30 hours of movies because there's 17 movies, 18 movies.
Okay, we don't have to do this.
We'll do the math some other time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I guess this will be my last one since we're closing in on time.
No, we're gonna go over it because we prepped this. We've spent the time on it. We're gonna go over today.
Okay.
Don't cry, Argentina. You'll be fine.
So then the next one on my list, if we're going to keep going, then I'll do something a little bit lighter here, and that is actually Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the Fresh Prince
That's
pilot.
such a fun pilot.
So 1990, September 1990, called just pilot, didn't really have a name or anything like that, but sometimes it's referred to as the Fresh Prince Project, is kind of the working title for it. Those who've never seen it, it is stars Will Smith as a fictional version of himself who, had trouble with.
It's the
Just
theme
do it,
song.
Derek. You know you want to. That's the whole reason why you say
Anyway,
it.
moving on.
Don't worry about it.
You're introduced to the aunt and uncle and his cousins that he stays with, and of course Jeffrey, and you learn about all of them, and they're all supposed to be very uptight and prim and proper, and Will, of course, is the laid-back, cool guy, with the colorful, crazy clothes
and a cummerbund on his tits.
That's there. And there's some wonderful moments like Ashley, who's like 8 at the time, rapping at the big business dinner, which is just a great scene. Or, there's the big argument between Uncle Phil and Will about what it means to grow up on the streets and who Uncle Phil was, because Will's got the Malcolm X poster and stuff, but Uncle Phil was like there in the streets and all that. Like it laid the seeds for some really powerful moments that would come back later in the show between these characters, and just it really showed a wide range for what these actors could do. That the show would later take advantage of.
You mean Shredder didn't show all of James Avery's reign?
James Avery was...
Okay. We weren't going to go there, but Shredder had a lot of range in the cartoon, okay? Jeez.
Oh, man. I love James.
That was my next best pilot, was the original Teenage Mutant.
That cartoon does not hold up well.
Season 1 is good. Season 2, they forget what colors they are, and everybody's just the same.
See, I thought it was because I was colorblind, but James Avery is wonderful. The whole cast is really great, and the pilot just shows them all off, and really kind of gives you the dynamic of who is who and their roles that they're going to be playing, and lays the seeds for that. There's more to Will than him just being kind of the talking back, hothead kind of cool kid, because at the end he's playing some Beethoven on the piano and that kind of thing. So I love it. It's great. All 6 seasons are right there behind me.
Of course.
So,
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah. They're right there, Ryan, if you want to borrow.
Also, all the Chuck is right behind you.
That's true,
and
too.
basically every show, Battlestar Galactica is right there.
Oh
so.
my god.
they're all right behind you.
Derek's research was just looking at that one shelf.
It's almost like I tend to buy stuff I enjoy.
Yeah, I tend to pirate stuff I enjoy.
That's illegal, Ryan. I certainly hope no one pirates this podcast.
Oh, good.
Oh, they do.
Because we charge for it everywhere.
Exactly.
$100 an episode.
So my next one, I'm going to just mention it because Ryan already coughed under his breath. It was American Gods. The first episode is called The Bone Orchard. It started a really cool premise for the show that they open up every episode with a small vignette about people who are bringing their old world faith to America and how it shaped America today. Then we meet our main character, Shadow Moon. He gets out of prison a couple days early because his wife has died. He meets Mr. Wednesday, and his whole life is upended. You find out a little bit more every single episode, which they do in such a beautiful way. Every vignette is done in a different cinematic style. There's, a documentary style. There's cartoon. There's just a war. It's pretty incredible, very vivid, and it was everything I wanted out of the show. This is my favorite book of all time, written by Neil Gaiman. And when I... Oh my god.
Sorry, we're laughing at chat. I asked in chat if there are any other favorite TV pilots out there. And Buster Props, I wonder who that is, said Peralta's dad in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
It was an actual pilot.
It was an actual pilot, yes, thank you.
With a pill addiction.
That's right.
No,
9-9.
American Gods is good.
I didn't watch it, so...
Pray for season 2.
The cinematography on that show is incredible.
I heard there's some David Bowie stuff, which kind of
Yes.
makes me want to watch it a little bit, but...
Yeah, they're not. I don't think you're going to have any of that in season 2.
Yeah,
Anyway.
because the person that was playing it is
Yeah,
no longer.
Gillian Anderson, yeah. The show was awesome, and the pilot was incredibly good. I hadn't even considered that for some reason. I guess in my head, it's not on the same level as like normal TV shows. Yeah, American Gods pilot is intensely good. It's a good pick.
Thank you. Ryan.
I know it seems like I'm doing a lot of superhero shows, but that's basically what I
all you
watch.
watch.
That's what he wants. I mean, we're doing favorites, not
Yeah.
best. Like,
Even though it says best on there, I think.
oh, Derek writes.
Classic Derek. I'm going to do Smallville, which we kind of briefly mentioned before. But the pilot, I didn't watch Smallville when it was actually on TV. I rewatched it here like in the last year.
Oh, wow.
All 10 seasons.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Did
I made
you
it through all
really?
of them. Yeah, I've told you guys that
Is that
before.
what you do when you run your printers? And you're just like,
No, that was what I did when I was like, no other shows on it.
Oh, got
and I
it.
was like, I'm just going to binge this because it looked interesting back in the day. I just didn't watch it. The pilot really got me hooked, though. It was, if you haven't seen it in a long time, you get to see the Kents run into Clark for the
As a
first
baby?
time as a very young kid. He's not a baby.
That's
he's
weird.
like
Okay.
he's like walking.
He's like 4 or 5,
Yeah.
maybe.
Whoa.
But
It's been a while since I've watched the pilot.
you get to see the meteor shower, which is basically like the setup for the entire show because the meteors are all kryptonite and give people powers. And a few years in, they discover different colors of kryptonite and things like that, really random stuff. But you get to meet Lex and find out why he's bald, and it's because of the meteor strike and being exposed to the kryptonite, which for some reason made him bald and no one else. But his the actor that played him did a really great job.
Michael Rosenbaum.
Michael Rosenbaum was probably the best Lex Luthor, and his
So
dynamic
good.
with Clark was amazing. And in that first episode, the most striking part for me was when Clark gets he gets exposed to the kryptonite as like a teenager, and this bully is wearing a kryptonite necklace, essentially, that was Lana's necklace. It was a love interest in the show, unfortunately. But anyway, he's able to like beat up Clark and string him up in basically a crucifixion pose with like a big S on his chest, and it's kind of the start of the deconstruction of the Superman character, which was what that show did really well. It kind of deconstructed him down to nothing and kind of brought him back up. And obviously by the end you get to see him be Superman. But it really was a powerful episode for me. And it really kind of, I mean, it held up. Even though it's not that old, it's pretty old in TV terms. It's like 2006 or something like that. I don't know.
I think it's older because the show ran for 10
That's true.
years.
It must have been like 2001.
I think it came out in the very early 2000s.
Yeah. But I mean, I felt like it still held up. I mean, I wouldn't recommend probably watching all 10 seasons. There was a lot of filler in there.
Yeah.
But the stuff they ended up doing with like the Justice League, the Green Arrow was actually pretty well done. Cyborg is in there. Aquaman, Zatanna was neat. Flash is weird.
I like parts of the Flash episode.
There's more than one Flash episode.
The one where they meet.
Yeah.
And Flash is,
stealing wallets.
Yeah, but like they're racing, and he's keeping up, and then the Flash, he just turns around and like kind of like see ya, and he's just gone.
Right.
I like that.
I liked the Justice League gets Gap hoodies.
Right. That was their costume for the most part.
Like I said, the CW's come a long way since Arrow.
Well, the Arrow actually had a suit.
Yeah,
it wasn't a Gap hoodie, but no, I'm talking about in the show on Green Arrow. He actually had it was. Like an early version, like leather version, more leathery even than the Arrow suit. And he had goggles instead of a mask, which was weird. And he used a crossbow because I don't think he wanted to learn how to use a real bow.
Well, that's just lazy.
Yeah, I think he does use a real bow eventually, but not as his main weapon. He mostly uses crossbows, which is like hand crossbows, like Huntress, basically. Yeah. But overall, I enjoyed the show. I was ready for it to end. But it was the
like season 6.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see Superman, and to a certain point, he was basically Superman, but they were just teasing that he wasn't wearing the suit and he wasn't flying. But yeah, overall enjoyable show, and I thought the pilot was pretty strong actually, especially for a CW show of that era.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's something interesting in chat that I think we could talk about for a moment, because Chagrin's saying that the Punisher pilot was great. Now, if a show never had an actual pilot because the whole season was ordered and made together, is there a pilot?
I almost put some Netflix shows on my list because I did love the Punisher, Chagrin, but I thought that was kind of a weird stipulation because they don't make an episode and go, oh, let's see if this
we're gonna
popular.
shop this to network.
Instead, they had Punisher show up in Daredevil, and everybody was like, we need a Punisher show immediately.
But even the other Netflix shows, like Daredevil, didn't have a pilot.
That's true.
Yeah, they were all just, we're gonna make a Daredevil show. Here's 13 episodes.
But Punisher, they got to test
that's
the
true.
market, and they did the same thing with Flash on Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
They did a backdoor pilot with Flash.
So it is kind of interesting.
Punisher had a really great first episode that kept me going, and I believe there are some really amazing things in the Punisher series as a whole. Micro is probably one of my favorite side characters ever created in a superhero
Go back
show.
and watch our Punisher review episode because it was actually a really great episode of this podcast. We really got to deconstruct the show.
It was good. Same with Daredevil. They had a really great first episode. I think the second episode was better because that hallway scene is iconic at this point. Mm-hmm. Every show has tried to mimic that.
But see, that's the thing with the Netflix shows is you don't have to have a really engaging first episode because it's all released at the same time.
Absolutely.
Versus,
so it's not really a traditional pilot.
It's a benefit. At the same time, Netflix goes all in on stuff. They don't get a chance to shop. But that's why they order pilots from like Aziz Ansari and Drew Barrymore. They don't order pilots from
Marvel.
Up and coming blah blah blah.
So with like the Tick, would that be considered a pilot? Because the first 4 episodes be like a pilot because they released the first 4 episodes and then the rest didn't come out for a long time.
I think the first episode.
Oh, they did release actually a pilot. Yeah, you're right.
Because the suit completely changes
the second episode.
too.
You're right. So that would be a traditional pilot, even though it's an on-demand service.
Right. Because it could be on demand, right? Because see, this is really interesting.
But the pilot is to sell your show. You show it around to multiple networks. You see who buys it and will pick it up. And
so, like Star Trek Discovery does not have a pilot. It has a prelude. The first 2 episodes are a prelude to the rest of the show.
And they're incredibly different for the rest of the show.
But the show was already picked up for 13 episodes. They expanded it to 15 later, but like those episodes were being made together. So I think, to define it, a pilot is, here's your 1 episode, who wants to buy the show based on this? And the Tick had that, but Daredevil didn't.
Yeah.
Right? Star Trek Discovery didn't. So I think that that's an important distinction because the way you make your first episode is pretty different if you have to sell the show on that one thing.
Yeah, and that's why pilots are usually worse than the rest of the show ends up being, because you have to cram so much into that show to make people care about what's happening that it ends up being overstuffed.
Well, a lot of things usually change, right? So you look at the very first episode of a main show like Seinfeld or Friends or something like that. A lot of things, style, furniture, sets, sometimes even actors, are completely changed.
Well, look at Parks and Rec. You had no development of any of the characters really. Like you don't get any of their real personalities other than Leslie. And that's a hugely popular show that went on for 7 seasons.
They had to cut that show short because people were getting too popular. Too many job offers were coming in. It wasn't just like one person was growing too big for it, like happens in a ton of TV shows. Because everybody was growing too big for this, and they had to end it because nobody could accept all these jobs and continue to do it. And I think that was a solid last season for it too. The time jump.
The time jump worked for a change.
Yeah. People didn't always like it, but she didn't want to do an entire season wearing a preggy belly, and I get that.
So are we doing one more after
one
this?
More.
Or 2 more?
You have 2 more because we just
Greg,
talked
I haven't
about
gone. Okay, so we're doing, okay. So then I'm going to do, all right, so my next one then is Fringe, which is also just called Pilot.
And right behind you.
And also right behind me.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Fringe.
If Family Guy is your next one.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's not. But it's not far off.
Star Trek Voyager is his next one.
No Star Trek made the cut, actually. So, but anyway, so Fringe, for those who don't know, is a 2008 sci-fi show from J.J. Abrams before he had an opportunity to do Star Trek and Star Wars. Fringe is a hardcore sci-fi show, very much in the vein of The X-Files and The Twilight Zone and a lot of Star Trek-y tropes. The pilot was super cool. The show kind of starts as a Monster of the Week kind of thing, but it all starts with there's a big plane crash and everybody on board has basically they're just crystallized and like some bioweapon, and you find out that this dude injected himself with something that was released into the atmosphere and killed everybody on the plane, and these agents have to figure it out, and the partner gets infected with it, and so he's gonna die, and they have to figure out a cure really quick, and that's where they bring in the Joshua Jackson is one of the stars of the show from Dawson's Creek and the Mighty Ducks.
I was gonna say, you mean the guy from the Mighty Ducks?
I know him from Mighty Ducks because I never watched Dawson's Creek, but
you hear he did that.
I hear he did that show. But yeah, so his father is like supposed to be this amazing fringe scientist, and for those who don't know, fringe science are things that are highly hypothetical that haven't been proven, things like telekinesis and telepathy and time travel and alternate universes and those types of things.
The fun stuff.
The really cool stuff that sci-fi does. And so he's supposed to be this amazing scientist, but he's had a nervous breakdown. He's in a mental institution, and so they have to basically break him out of the mental institution, and you find out that his old lab partner, William Bell, who later is played by Leonard Nimoy when they finally show him on the show, is his company, Massive Dynamics, was responsible for making the bioweapon, and you start learning about these strange things that are happening by this massive corporation, and then they create this kind of fringe task force division, which kicks off the show. So they have to introduce a ton of characters, all of which are throughout the show pretty hardcore. So they have to cement quite a bit in one episode, and the budget's really solid. It was a really good show, Fox show, so mainstream stuff. And I know neither of you guys have watched it, which is why I provided so much detail.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right.
Ren Buff says that it had a great start, but then got kind of weird for them. And yeah, the show definitely gets weird. The last season's not very good because they do a time jump, and it doesn't really make any sense. But I like the first 4 seasons quite a bit. So.
I get it.
All right. Last ones.
Okay, so my last one is probably one of my favorite shows of all time, and it's Pushing Daisies. It is a show about a man who grows up to be a pie maker, so they called it the Pie-Let. And this show was a little too weird for television. Just gonna say that right now. The only way I can describe it is a morbid premise with a whimsical delivery. it was painted only the way happy Tim Burton movie looks. It was, this man had the power to bring people back from the dead, but there were stipulations on it. He could only do it for a minute or else somebody else would have to die. And, you touch them once, they come back. You touch them a second time, they're dead forever. And it's a fun show. It starred Lee Pace, who we all know as Ronan the Accuser now, and
Of course.
Kristen Chenoweth, who has been in a ton of TV shows. She was also in American Gods, but she's probably most famous for her Broadway stuff. And there's a lot of fun side characters in there. They created this huge world but couldn't contain it, and unfortunately it aired in 2007 and 2008 during the writer's strike. So the first season got a 20 episode order that was cut down to 9. And the second season got a 15 episode order that was cut down to 12. So this show really, really suffered from it and could not pick back up. So
You got 2 Brian Fuller shows on your list.
I do. I am a huge fan of Brian Fuller. He's a very creative man. I'm really looking forward to his next project, which is Good Omens.
Yeah, I'm a huge Brian Fuller fan too, mainly because of his history with Star Trek. So.
Yeah, he's huge in Star Trek.
But his thing is that when he was a kid, he wanted to grow up to not just be a writer, but be a Star Trek writer. And he did.
He did.
He did it.
Good for him.
And he's done some really good Star Trek work, so that's a good pick. I'm watching it right now. I'm still in the first season, but man, that show is interesting.
Right.
The cinematography is super strange. The colors are incredibly vibrant, and it's a very unique show. Mm-hmm. So I enjoy it. Very dialogue focused, which I really like. So good stuff.
A lot of bottle episodes.
Yes, which is also difficult. I like that. Mm-hmm. Ryan.
Here's a big surprise, another superhero show.
Supergirl.
Oh no, I'm going to go with The Flash because, I remember when the Flash pilot aired, it was, I feel like we were friends at the time.
Yeah, we were.
Because I remember talking to you guys about it, and we had discussed that it was a really strong pilot, probably stronger than Arrow. And I don't know if I agree that it resonated with me as much as Arrow did, or as important as Arrow was, but the actual pilot for The Flash was probably objectively better. It didn't feel like a pilot. You get the introduction to the particle accelerator explosion, Barry waking up months after the explosion from a coma, and you get to meet Cisco and Caitlin Snow and Harrison Wells.
Officially, because you did get to see them briefly in Arrow a few months earlier.
Right, yeah, because Arrow kind of had a backdoor pilot version, like to just kind of gauge whether the character deserved his own show or not.
Barry Allen called The Scientist was one of the highest rated episodes. Mm-hmm. It had a ton of viewers, and
they handled his origin very well.
Yeah.
And that obviously a lot of that footage was the same in the show when they show the slowdown of time and everything and all the chemicals kind of floating around. It was really neat. And you get him fighting the weather wizard, I think it was in that episode, and you get the traditional classic Flash runs backward the opposite direction of the tornado, which is a classic comic book thing that he's done. And by the end, you get the tease of Harrison Wells standing up out of the wheelchair and going to the future newspaper saying that Flash vanishes in Infinite Crisis or something like that, which still hasn't paid off yet, but we're hoping.
And it probably never will.
We are hoping, fingers crossed, that it does, although the show is kind of not the greatest right now, but...
I think they bit off a little more than they could chew with some of the Easter eggs they were trying to play with, so...
Which is sad because there are some real gems in there. The fact that they were able to bring King Shark in is...
And he looks great.
He
really
does.
Great, yeah.
That was half the season's budget for CG, but they did it.
Grodd was good.
Yeah.
God, was so
although the fight is a little weird. You guys haven't seen that from last season, I think.
We watched last season.
Oh, did you?
We haven't caught up on
the
this
Gorilla
season.
City fight?
Yeah.
You saw that then?
Yeah, it was alright. But I mean that again, like I feel like that's a little biting off a little more than you can chew.
Yeah.
I mean, first off, that I think would be difficult for any network show to do, and it's the CW, so it's not even CBS or Fox, right? I think that HBO or Starz could pull off something like that because they're pulling off Game of Thrones and American Gods, but
in all fairness, it took them 5 seasons to get a full dragon in the mix. Like even their CGI,
Well,
they push it off as much as possible.
That's
so
true.
it's not like they're just busting it out. Veep has no reason for a CGI gorilla, and
I'd watch that episode. I like Veep. Veep's fun. No, but I think the Flash pilot was incredibly promising and really showed that there could be a balance to the darkness that Arrow had, because at the time Arrow was pretty gritty.
Yeah, that was season 2, I think, or season 2 had just ended.
Right, season 2 is where the teaser was, right?
Right.
And yeah, so
The 2-episode thing, yeah.
because they're 2 seasons behind it.
Right, yeah.
Flash is in season 4 right now.
So it was one of those things where the CW was showing, look, we can do it both ways, and we can even have them cross over with each other and have it be consistent and coherent, which I think is super impressive.
But not anymore.
Well, they did it. They did pull it off. They showed it could be done, and they showed it could be done on the CW's budget, which means that the other networks have no excuse.
The Legends of Tomorrow was created for all their side characters to go off on, because you can't have side characters one up your main character, so they just created a brand new show, and now that is a comic book. There hasn't been something this cool since Harley Quinn was created in the 90s for the animated series, and now she's a comic book legend.
And now Legends is the best of the CW shows,
is.
whereas last season it was the weakest.
It's because Legends doesn't take themselves seriously.
No, they know that like their crap doesn't make any sense, and that there's easier ways to solve these problems, but instead they take the fun way and go with it that way.
The fact that the whole thing is based off of time travel and different things like that means that they have so much flexibility to do whatever they feel like doing.
Yeah, they've gone to the 70s, they've gone to the 80s, they've gone to dinosaur age, they've gone to
the future.
Western like the Westerns era, and met Jonah Hex, and they've gone to the future. I mean, they've done a little bit of everything, and Civil War and Revolutionary War.
They can test anything they want, and if it doesn't work, reset button. They get to do it, and they have an in-universe explanation for it. So I like Legends.
And
Tomorrow.
Wally Wally West is in it now, and Constantine has been in a few episodes this season. So I mean, they're really diversifying the types of characters. Although this, with Wally West being there, it's basically now the bad guy just incapacitates the speedster first somehow in some ridiculous way that the speedster could never have picked up on, even though they have super senses. And then the rest of the legends punch him. And that's how they win.
The rest of the Legends.
Yeah, I mean it's a great show, but
Well, last season it was just like, well, let's just hold him and we'll get skill to punch him.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, but they embrace the fact that yes, they have an OP speedster. Last season the Reverse Flash was part of the I can't remember what they were calling it at the time, but the group of bad guys.
Pretty much
the Injustice League, whatever they're calling
They didn't call them that, but
I feel like they name dropped it at one point.
He could have killed all of them in 1 second.
Yeah.
Because he's so fast, but they played around with that, and it's fine. They embrace it.
Fun.
So
I feel like Legends of Tomorrow is still has the corny comic booky joyness that Flash started with. Yeah. That Flash now takes itself a little too seriously.
Which is weird because Legends is in its 3rd season, and you would think that this would be the point when they would start getting more serious, and that's what happened to Flash. But no, they're getting more and more ridiculous, which is great.
Well, they tried serious in the 1st season, and they had a lot of serious characters that are not on there anymore because they were boring.
Yeah.
How dare you make the Hawks boring?
Oh
They're never boring in the comics.
She was a barista. I don't know if you know that. 5 minutes ago, she was a barista serving coffee. Yeah.
How dare you spend 2 years with Brandon Routh and don't love him?
I know.
I can spend 2 minutes with him and be in love.
He hasn't had a love interest, a stable love interest.
Poor man.
He had Felicity on Arrow, and then,
He's got to find his Lois Lane.
I guess.
Stop. Okay, your turn.
All right, so my last one is Futurama. Futurama is probably it might be my favorite show of all time.
It's so good.
The original episode, Space Pilot 3000, aired in 1999 to correspond with the turn of the century. It set up so many things that were to come later. You had the entire Nibbler going back in time to do the time code in the later movies. You had the missing crew that Farnsworth could just hire Leela Fry and Bender for, and what happened to them. Just the amazing technology of, like, the celebrities' heads in jars is in the first episode, the suicide booths, and Bender wants to kill himself because he found out that what he was building was for suicide booths, so he's going to kill himself in a suicide booth, but he's going to not going to pay for it, though. He's got the trick quarter. I just think that Futurama is one of the cleverest shows that's ever been on TV, and the pilot just threw everything at it. Every main character is in there. Every great B character has some face or line in that episode to set up future stuff, and so much from that very first pilot comes back in either future episodes or those TV movies. I mean, you find out that when Fry is frozen and they go through time really quick and you see the aliens destroy the whole city, like, that ends up happening later and it's Bender's fault. Like, it's wonderful, and it's everything that Futurama grows up to be.
You're totally right. It's such a great show.
That's it.
It's just, I mean,
I've seen some episodes of it, but I've never watched the whole series.
It's incredibly poignant. It's touching at times. I've laughed so hard at this show.
You cried?
Yeah.
With the dog?
God, Jurassic Bark, if that's not one of the saddest. It has some of the most romantic moments I've ever seen between two characters. I mean, the Devil's Hands Are Idle Playthings.
Oh, wow.
My favorite episode. It's just incredible. Incredible. I don't know how that show was canceled like 8 times.
So many times.
And Simpsons is still going when... I don't get it. I've never found the same charm, the same intelligence behind Simpsons.
I mean, Futurama, they had physicists as writers on the show when they had the doomsday equation, or the equation where they were swapping bodies, their minds and bodies. Like, they came up with legit equations to make the math work. They wrote themselves into a corner and then they mathed their ways out of it. They really did. There's just amazing stuff, and I know we're talking about pilots here, but the finale is one of the best finales of any show I've ever seen, in my opinion.
Maybe we'll do a best finale or favorite finales later on this year.
It's great. It's a wonderful show, and the pilot shows everything that world is going to be. It shows all the technology, all the characters, the quirkiness, the sarcasm, the tongue-in-cheek style of the entire show.
The puns.
So many puns.
Yeah. It's good.
It's so great. So if you've never seen it and you enjoy sci-fi or cartoons at all, you got to go check it out. You're missing out.
All right, guys. So that's our episode.
It is. What are we talking about next week?
Next week, we are being joined by Nicole Santarella again. We are going to rank the CW superheroes. So it's actually pretty awesome that Ryan set us up for all of this.
That means you guys have to catch up on all the shows before
all
then.
Of them. Are we ranking the characters or the shows?
The characters.
Wow, that's a lot of characters.
Not all of them.
And you guys don't know all of them.
We always do 20. So, we'll talk about beforehand which 20 are we including, And I do want to say that they have to be a super of some kind, Felicity doesn't count.
Oh, that was my number one.
So define a super.
Come on.
She's a super hacker.
Costume.
She one time threw a tablet and killed a League of Assassins ninja with it.
Oh, God.
It's true. It happened in the show.
You're
I'm
right.
not making that up. And she nuked a whole city.
That's true. She's killed more people than I think anybody else on the show.
Really what superheroes do, though? Do they
Oh, so we're not
nuke
including
whole cities?
villains then, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, this is only superheroes.
It's just the superheroes.
Now, what about anti-heroes?
We'll talk about this next week.
Which version of Wells do you want on this?
That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
I don't want the hipster drumming one.
HR?
As much as I enjoy
liked
him.
him.
No, he's fun.
You haven't even seen the best versions yet if you haven't watched this season. There's the Council of Wells that happens in this season.
God.
So exciting.
Oh, God.
I gotta be honest.
ridiculous.
Tom Cavanaugh, who plays the Wellses, when I saw that he was cast for that role, I was a little hesitant because I had only known him as JD's brother on Scrubs.
He had an entire show. I don't remember what it was about, but it lasted.
See,
It was
that's what
on
I'm
for a
talking
while.
about. And he is so great. He's so great on
He's a good
Flash. He
actor.
really is awesome. So I'm really glad that Yogi Bear wasn't the end of his career. So because he's obviously much better than that movie, showcase.
We're all better than Yogi Bear.
All right, so that's going to be it for us. If you'd like to find us outside of the show, Ryan is at Buster Props. Ray is at Siren Ray. I am at The Star Trek Dude. You can find us at the Heroes Podcast Network at Heroes Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram, or heroespodcasts.com. You can find our show on Apple Podcasts, Blog Talk Radio, Google Play, and Spreaker.
Thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. If you want to go back and listen to other episodes, we do not have an overarching story plot. Just pick and choose.
It's true.
Yes, we have 111 episodes that you can stream from our website or any of the platforms.
Do not be overwhelmed. You don't have to start at episode 1. We have a bad pilot. Don't listen to our show.
Pick whatever you want. Things, we got better over time and worse over time in other ways. But thank you for everybody who joined us live in chat tonight at twitch.tv/heroespodcast. You can do that Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. We really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. And a special thank you to Jordan, Doc Rev, and Trackboy, our top 3 Patreon contributors. We appreciate it, guys. It means a lot to us. We'll catch everybody next week.